There we go.
Oh, perfect. See, I can
Boom.
technology sometimes. But thank you again for doing this. I figure we'll just
Yeah.
dive right into it. If you could you please both introduce yourselves?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tim Good. I'm one of the editors of The Last of Us for HBO.
And I'm Emily Mendez. I'm one of the editors on The Last of Us. I started as an assistant and was lucky enough to move up as an editor for 4 episodes, which I co-edited with Tim.
That's awesome. I'm sure you've heard this a lot, but I want to congratulate you both on the Emmy nomination for outstanding picture editing for your work on The Last of Us. How have you been taking the news?
Emily, how are you taking the news?
I mean, it's been surreal. It's really just been like, it's felt like a dream, honestly. It's been so exciting. And like finding out about being Emmy nominated, I was like on the phone with my family and we were looking at the announcement together and then scrolling on like a shared screen. And when we all saw it, we just screamed, everyone was screaming, and it was just an exciting time.
Yeah, no, we're so proud of it and so proud of everyone who was nominated as well. It's a great team, a great crew. Everyone loves the show so much and they love the material, and it's a honestly it's a joy. It's a joy to
Yeah.
work on.
It is, and it's something that we both love and care about so much. Like it has a really special place in both of our hearts, and like so much of our hearts went into making this, to editing on the show, and it's just it feels really great that it's been received so well.
Yeah, I'm someone who's been a fan of the story since like the very first game came out, like right when it came out. And to see that translated so amazingly. I was crying, I think, every episode, whether it was happy tears, sad tears, like it was so crazy to just see it come to life like that. I thought it was so well done. Uh,
Awesome. We're so happy.
Thank you.
but shifting over to your work on episode 3, titled Long, Long Time, what was it like working on an episode that is seen by so many people as one of the most like beautiful episodes of television history?
It's really cool, like, and episode 3 was the first thing that we did. And I was editing it, and Emily was my assistant on it. But she also, as I normally do, I gave her many scenes to edit. And that's one of the reasons why Craig Mason was so happy to allow her to be elevated to co-editor, because she did a lot of great scenes in that episode. And working on that episode was it was a beautiful experience. I can't say that it didn't have its moments where I was terrified that it was going to be a failure. But at the same time, I also knew it was, I think I was terrified mostly because the script that Craig had written was such a beautiful story. And I was like, I have to do this justice. I have to make this not just great, but better, like even better than great. It has to be like spectacular. And at the same time, making it spectacular also meant trying to do as little as possible as an editor, because the performances that Nick and Murray gave, and also Pedro and Bella gave in that episode, were really beautifully done on their own. And the way Peter Horde directed it, a lot of it was staged in these 2 shots, and so it was not important for me to be bouncing around to try and sort of, tell the story or make it even faster. It was about allowing them to live in the environment that was created by the production team, which was an unbelievable unit that built that entire town from scratch. The roofs, actually, they did not have roofs. I don't know if you knew that. There were no roofs in Billstown. They had to put those on in visual effects later because they couldn't do it. So I was like, well, we got to shoot next week. We don't have any roofs on this thing, and we're going to put blue screens on them, and we'll just add them later. But it was such a it was a unique joy to be able to start our journey together on that episode.
I did not know that about the roofs. I did see a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but I didn't see that, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
With episode 5, titled Endure and Survive, in the behind the scenes, it showed the infected were a mix of actors with practical makeup and VFX infected. How was it seeing all of the different takes for the sequence with the infected horde and the bloater reveal?
Ooh, Emily, you wanna answer that one?
I mean, a lot of times when we were getting dailies in for the show, it just already felt like so immersive, right? Like I've always been a fan of the game. That it was one of my favorite games, and so when we started working on this, I was kind of blown away. And so when we were getting in dailies for that battle sequence, it was like just being like put in the game. It felt like, and I loved every second of it. I think that battle sequence, having a mixture of visual effects and practical, was a really cool thing to work on. But also there were so many great practical elements just there from the beginning. So we had a lot to like look at and go off of for when we were picking takes, when we were editing, when we were, building tension, things like that.
Yeah, and I know that they really wanted it to be as much as practical as possible, also for the actors. They wanted the actors to feel like they were really in that environment and they're not like being scared of a tennis ball chasing them. That would be like a little visual effects tennis ball, like, oh, and now the bloater's coming at you, and they're like, no, I didn't. So that's a tennis ball, and I'm not scared of that thing.
We were very lucky that we didn't really have anything like that for most of the. I mean, for any of the show, it was a lot of practical elements throughout that they just enhanced, but that was great.
Yeah, and I remember on our last show, Umbrella Academy, we actually had a kiss scene where someone had to kiss a tennis ball, and then they replaced the tennis ball with someone else. And so I was like, this is so much better. So that was because of COVID, of course. They couldn't do it because of COVID. So no kissing allowed. So they figured out a way to do it. So
wow, I would never would have guessed that would be a thing with the what you just mentioned. I mean, I guess there's a lot you can do with that stuff, but there's a lot you don't consider that could be.
That's correct.
Yeah, when I was watching because I actually I bought the Blu-ray of the first season, and I was watching the behind the scenes, and there's like behind the scenes of that sequence, and it's just to see the suit of the bloater and everything and the fire, and I was like, there's so much of this is practical. That's really cool.
Yeah, they built it all, and again, another amazing build by the production unit, unreal. They just took over this huge empty lot and built this thing over months, and then they basically just turned on the fire and said, all right, here we go. We added a little bit later, but it was mostly practical because that was what would help. Again, it would help the environment and the feeling of fear. I think Bella's performance is based on the fact that they were in the middle of this and truly were reacting as any scared individual would.
Yeah, I definitely bought Bella's fear in that moment, especially with the child, the infected child. Oh my gosh, I literally jumped out of my seat because that's not something that's in the game. That was something they just did, and I was like, I've always wondered what that would look like.
And I got to give credit to the visual effects team. I mean, we had an actor do the bloater and the child clicker, and then the visual effects team actually replaced both. So they used the practical sort of movement and what they were, the wonderful sort of the bodybuilder Adam Basil in the suit, and Sky Cowan, who was the child clicker. She's incredibly flexible, so she was doing all of those things, and then they just replaced their entire bodies, and were able to do so and make it look as realistic as possible because they had seen exactly what these looked like in the firelight and in the environment. So that was an amazing thing to see.
Yeah, I think it's such a great testament to them because they blended it so well that it just seems real, and the blending of the visual effects and the practical effects is just kind of it's a beautiful blend.
No, honestly, yeah, I wouldn't even know what the difference is.
It's incredible, right? That's the thing. We were like, is that the real? Is that is that Sky? So they're like, no, that's fake. We're like,
that's really cool. Sky is the name of the
Sky Cowton was the child clicker. Yeah, she was a Canadian local actor.
Yeah, I saw some posts about her because like it kind of went viral because she had posted like her outfit and everything, and I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, and they made her even creepier, a little like side ponytail. So it's like, oh my god.
Episode 7, which is titled Left Behind, there are so many beautiful and subtle moments between Ellie and Riley. The way Ellie looks at Riley on the carousel, or when they're dancing, it all feels so pure and real. What was it like editing moments like that?
Emily, why don't you take this?
That episode is really special to me for a lot of reasons. It was the first one that I co-edited with Tim because we edited out of order a lot of the episodes. But I was able to move up and start working on that one as an editor. And I had always loved the Left Behind portion in the game. Like, it was my favorite part of the game. And it was one of the reasons I loved the game so much, because you get this special kind of protected moment with Ellie, and her past. And so when we were working on this episode, those moments between Ellie and Riley were some of my favorite things to cut into the episode, because it's an episode that resonates with me a lot. That, you know, like I've been through falling in love with your friend and not knowing if they feel the same way. And so when I was watching the dailies, Bella and Storm were just giving these incredible performances. And so just watching through the dailies, I was just pulling all these options. And Tim, also, we were just working on this sort of secret language that you have to kind of navigate, you know, and when you're in that type of situation. And so, yeah, it's just a really special episode. I love that it's, you know, Neil Druckmann has kind of talked about, like, it's like skipping school to go on a date with your crush during the apocalypse. You know, it kind of feels like that. And I loved every second of working on it.
Yeah, and you know what was cool about it also is that, and I'm going to just tell you, like, what we were getting from Bella was this, like, I didn't even think that Bella was acting. It was just like so unbelievably lived in and natural, and as though there were no cameras, as though it was like, I really just truly believe that, you know, that Ellie was right there, and her sort of just that freedom in her face when she was on, you know, doing all these things and running around. Nothing felt stagey, nothing felt like hokey, nothing felt like I'm trying. It always just completely felt so lived in, that, again, like, it was our job to kind of make sure all of that lived inness made it in without us having to do any of the, here, we're going to improve it. We didn't have to improve it. We just had to sort of, like, say, present it in a way that made sense to the audience, and that also made sense to not just, you know, every audience, but specifically the queer audiences. That was the thing that we were really, really careful about, because we wanted queer audiences to be able to see, you know, their lives and how it feels to be in a situation like that, where it's not just like you can you might be losing your entire friendship with this person by revealing who you really are. So all of those things together made editing those sequences, and specifically the sequences where, you know, Ellie and Riley are looking at each other on the carousel, I can speak to. Those were amazing to me, and all I could think of was, look at how Ellie is thinking about what her life could be like. Like, this could be my life. This could be like she could be my, you know, we could be together, you know. And then she realizes that this is never going to happen, and that whole journey inside of her mind, I watched it happen, and I said, well, this is important. So this is the whole point of the carousel scene, is she's pretending what her life could be like, and then sort of seeing it disappear. So there's this beautiful piece of film that that Liza oh my God, Liza Johnson, thank you very much. Liza Johnson picked up with Ksenia Sereda, our cinematographer, where there was a reflection of Ellie and Riley in the carousel, and the reflection started to warp. And to me, that meant that this dream was starting to disappear. This idea, of hope, was starting to disappear, and Ellie's confidence was starting to drop. And so, again, all of those things that Bella and Riley and Storm gave us, we had to bring into our own experiences, and then sort of put those out in a way that could be not just digested, but felt. So.
Yeah, I'd say it's like adding a lot of vulnerability, because you're vulnerable. This is like, it's such a vulnerable storyline. And when I was working on the dance and kiss scene, once Ellie pulls her mask off, you know, there's this moment where she tells Riley not to go. And then you feel that she has no breath before she kisses Riley. Like, she decides to just kind of take the leap. And when I saw that in the dailies, I was like, that's one of the most real things I've ever seen. You know, it felt like I had this like emotional reaction when I was watching it. And I was just like, when you feel so connected from just the daily standpoint, it's like you mark it as, this has to be in the cut. And so that was the take I always had in there, because I thought Bella just did an incredible job.
I think you said that only happened like one time, right? So
that for that one. And then even at the end, when after they kissed, and then Riley says, you know, Ellie says, you know, I'm sorry, and then Riley's like, for what? And then they laughed. That only happened in one take, because they did like, and that like release of tension when I watched that, I was thinking that that's also so real, because they've been like, there's been this build this whole episode, right? Like this tension of like, does she like me? Does she not? Am I gonna lose my friend? And then they end up kissing, and then Riley's like, yeah, this is fine. And so they have this release where they laugh. But yeah, that only happened in one take, and I loved it. So
You talking about this literally has me like teary-eyed. Like that episode was so just, I mean, all of them are great, but that one like was just so beautiful. And those moments that you're talking about, exactly what you said with the breath and everything. Like
Yeah.
I really felt those moments, and it was just those moments that I've loved for years from the game. Just seeing it like, you know, in real life, just seeing it actually happen. It was just so cool to see in those performances. Like everything that you did with the editing and everything just came out just like the flow. Everything is perfect. I don't think
Well, that is
nothing could be changed.
the fact that you are loving it so much was our goal and our hope. So that's
Yeah,
the
it
best
means
thing
a
we
lot.
can possibly hear.
Well, I'm glad I could tell you this face to face. Well, in
Yeah.
a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Considering all the episodes that you both worked on, was there any sequence in particular you found yourself enjoying the most to edit? And was there one that was the most difficult to put together?
Ooh, I'll say the one that was the most fun for me, and this is a weird one. The most fun was the very first scene where Ellie reads the puns to Joel, and it's because of the way that she just destroyed Pedro. Pedro was just like, he could not. He could not. He's like, I can't. And I knew it was too funny, you know, because they're very connected in real life. And so to see him pretend not to be, you know, not pretend, but like, you know, to have to make him not, you know, excited or interested in this was just really fun. It was also one of the first moments of real levity in the entire series. So it was like really fun for them, as opposed to everything else would have been so, you know, dark and you know, understandably so. Everything has been horrible, and there's been death and this and that, and then suddenly she's telling, you know, puns to him. So I just remember, and also I just love the dailies of it. I love the material that was given. So I remember calling Emily. I'm like, you got to see this. You know, come. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
that
so
was the most fun for me.
One of the ones that was really fun for me was the photo booth scene. That scene, we had so many dailies. They did a ton of alternate like options, and just we had so many different takes. We had specific moments in that scene that we knew we were going to use, but then there was just like a lot of alternates. So that was really fun to like watch through what they were doing and different things that they were saying. And what's really cool about that scene is uh there's the bunny that's talking throughout. And
Mhm.
so when I first was editing that, you know, a lot of times we do temp ADR where we have each other, you know, record audio. And so I said to Tim, you know, will you record this voice? I think you'd be great as this bunny. So Tim recorded the bunny, and everyone loved it so much that it still remains in the show to this day. So
I'm
that
the bunny.
he's the bunny.
You're the bunny?
I'm the bunny. I feel like
Well,
that's like from the government. I'm the bunny.
Yeah.
I gotta go and rewatch that now. With that
Yeah,
in mind.
I have the original voice memo of before Emily like pitch shifted my voice and made it into a bunny's voice. But I
Yeah.
have the original, and it was just hilarious because I think I remember like we were so like giddy with like so much, we were doing so much at the time, and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll do that, and I was just delirious. And it was like, and Emily was like, this was perfect because like you're cracking yourself up in
Yeah.
the middle of these performances, so therefore this bunny character is kind of sociopathic, and that's kind of perfect for the bunny right now.
Yeah,
So
it was
it was
so
great.
good. I was laughing out loud with that when we were adding the pitch to it, and then I was like, "This is gonna work fantastic," because
Yeah,
that was the whole thing. It was supposed to be like corny, and Tim did such a good job, and yeah,
clearly very good at being corny here.
well,
So
That is an amazing fun fact. I love that.
yeah.
In the finale, the show kept it true to the game's infamous ending that has stirred many discussions over the years. What are your feelings on this ending, both for the show and the game? Do you think Joel made the right choice?
Ooh, good question. This is a really interesting discussion that we had, and in fact, there was a version of the last scene, and I edited the last scene blindly. And what I mean by that, I edited everything blindly, not blindly like this, but I never played the game and I never watched any of the cutscenes. So when I edited the last scene, actually, Craig said to me, maybe you should watch the cutscene. And I said, let me just try it. Let me just try it myself first before I watch the cutscene, because it's really critical that we get this right. And I said, all right, fine. And because I again, I wasn't feeling the pressure that everyone else was, because I never played the game and I didn't understand, how critical it was to, sticking this landing. I was like, let me just do a version. So I did a version, and it was really close to the version of the game, which must mean I was absorbing the style of The Last of Us over the course of those 9 episodes, which was also cool. But I had added something at the very end of it, and I had added a piece where Ellie walks away after saying, "Okay," and then you saw a bit of Joel thinking about what he just did, and then also walking away, and then the two of them are walking away in a wide shot, sort of separated, like one on either side of the screen. So that, let me see if I can do this right. Come on, Tim, move this way. There we go. So it's like this. So they were like separated. So you understood that they'd come so close, and now suddenly they were really separated. And it was an interesting decision on my part, but also it was kind of like it was way too much of a period on the ending, and they really wanted it to end in that sharp way where the decision of her to accept Joel's lie is the end, and you don't get any further. You don't get to sit with it. You only get to sit with it like immediately after the lie is accepted. And so we really had this really interesting discussion as to, well, should we do that version? We sent it back and forth to a bunch of people. Some people like my version, some people like the original version. And in the end, we all decided that, the original version works for a very, very good reason. And it's really, truly is, it just rips the audience out of the moment. And it says, no, you can't think if this is not the style of it. It also makes you go, I wonder how Joel feels. And you don't get that moment. You're not going to get that moment. You can't study that moment. So doing that in terms of whether or not he did the right thing or not, that's also debatable. From what I'm told, when they tested the video game, people who had children said that he absolutely made the right decision. And people who didn't have children said, I don't know, I think it was the wrong decision. So it depends on the context of your own life, which I think is what makes that ending as powerful as it is. Emily, is there anything you want to add into that?
I think what's cool about our job as editors is when we're editing those sequences and Joel making this decision to, do what he did, is we have to put ourselves like in his mindset, right? So we're not judging him whether we personally agree with him or not, whether we would do the same thing or not. We're working in a way where we're really pushing the story forward and connecting with this character and putting ourselves in his shoes. So I think that's what's, really a really interesting thing about our jobs is we have to sort of, open our minds to whatever the characters are going through. So personally, I don't know, I think for that scene and for that episode and what Joel does, for me, it's just a matter of just understanding him as a character versus like what I would do. So
yeah, that's definitely fair. I think it would have been cool to see that version of the ending, but I do agree that I guess sticking it to like the way it ended with the game is probably the best, because
trust me, I saw it wasn't better. So it was just an option. So it was just a way to go. And we looked at it and we're like, the problem with it was that it released too much of the tension by dropping out and going back. It's just like it's sort of like, it petered out a little bit. And again, like, this is the thing, we have this material to work with, and a lot of times I don't think people in the world understand that as editors we have so much that could have gone in, and it's our job to and the producer's job to decide what gets in and why it gets in, because again, there's so many different things that people are like, oh, I wish I would have seen that version. Like, there's billions of ways that anything could go. In the end, we have to be the gatekeepers of what exactly the emotion and the story have to be for us to be telling the truest possible story to the characters that we have been given. And I think that everyone on the team was always thinking about that. It was like, how do we make this story and these characters ring as true as possible, and not have anything else that's just sort of sitting there and allowing you to sit back and go like, oh, let me think about that. It's like, no, we're gonna really put you ill at ease in this situation. And I think it's in the end, I think that was a better way to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have options and stuff, but
Yeah. Oh yeah. So always good to have options. Better to have options than to have none.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, like I was glad it ended the same way because people had a lot of debate. I remember before the finale aired, people kept being like, "Oh, they're probably going to change it. They're probably going to do this and that." And I was like, I don't know. It might stay the same, and it stayed
yeah.
the same. And I was just like, I was glad it did because I'll never forget that feeling I had the very first time I played the first game. I remember I was up late. It was like I think like 2 a.m. The game ends there and the credits roll, and I just sat there with my controller and I was like, "What?" I was like, "No, it can't be
Exactly.
done."
Yep.
It can't be done. And they ripped you out of it. That's the thing that works. So amazing. I love it.
I feel like through this conversation, I've already learned a few fun facts, but was there maybe one more you had that you haven't had a chance to share or talk about that you'd like to bring up?
Fun facts. Oh my gosh, Emily, do we have any more fun facts?
I mean, you've already given me some good ones here.
I
So
know. I'm just trying to like it's all there's so much.
Yeah. I always think of you as the rabbit. That's
The
that's
I
rabbit.
know that
fun
is the
fact.
fun. That is
I've
it's a
already
good one.
It's
I've
so
already
good though.
Okay. I
You're-
got one.
Okay, yeah, I did too.
Fun fact is that Emily got to edit the birth of Ellie in the last episode, and because she loves
Ashley Johnson.
Anna,
Actually,
Ashley Johnson, the actress, so much, and then we were at the premiere, and there Ashley Johnson was. And I said, Emily, we're going to go talk to Ashley Johnson right now. And we're going to tell her that you edited that sequence. And it was the coolest moment in the world for me because I got to see the moment where Emily got to meet Ashley and see Ashley's face just open up and go, oh my God, I'm so happy. And it was just like, for me, that was not even a fun fact. It was just a moment for me for all time. So
That's
that
like
was my moment for all time.
one of my top 10 favorite moments of anything in my professional career. I mean, it was just that sequence is so special to me, and getting to cut the birth of Ellie, who's this character that I just completely love. And so to meet Ashley Johnson and to talk to her about the scene and her work in the scene was amazing. Yeah, it's special to me too. This is the fun fact I thought of, and it was one of yours. But the carousel music I think is a really
Oh
cool
yes.
story. So I think you should tell that story.
Oh yeah. See, there you go. See, we just needed a moment.
Yeah.
So the carousel music was something I chose, the Cure, and it's from literally it's from a Baby Lullaby CD, and I had found that 10 years ago, and I was going to use it in an episode of Fringe, also starring Anna Torv, aka Tess. And I remember putting it into a scene where there was a young boy at a toy store, and he was browsing through like old toys, and I thought this was really cool because it had this sort of childlike feel, but at the same time it had an 80s nostalgia to it. And the showrunner, I remember saying, we can't do this. I said, well, why? He says, I love it so much that it will just, I'm not going to pay attention to the story at all. I'm going to only be listening to that song. And it's just going to be, I'm just going to be in the song. So I just said, okay, well, it's a really great piece. So I held on to that song for a decade, waiting to use it.
wow.
And I was like, as soon as I saw the carousel, I said, oh my God, a carousel sounds like a lullaby. It can sound like a lullaby. And this is a song about wanting to run away with someone. And that's kind of perfect. So I remember just putting it in there. And it was I think it was Jack Lesko, our co-executive producer, who was like, Tim, this music, you're killing me. It's amazing. I think it was the looks, this song. And it was a cool thing. And I, again, as editors, as filmmakers, we sometimes have these little things that we put in our back pockets. And this was my big back pocket move, is I had this like little, Cure lullaby song hanging out. And everyone was like, isn't that from Rockabye Baby? I said, yes, it is. So it is. So you can actually buy that if you'd like. So, and that's my fun fact, is I put in the carousel lullaby.
And it was pure magic when he put it in too. Like I remember where we were sitting when we watched that scene with that music in it for the first time, and I was just floored. And that's what's so cool about what we do, is when you get the right piece of music in a scene like that, it just is this magical moment. And that scene definitely was one of the examples of just finding the right piece for the right scene. And it was a really awesome thing to be a part of. So
That's really
Yay.
cool. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Of
That's really
course. Yeah,
cool.
it's fun.
I see we only have about 5 minutes left. So
All right.
I guess I'll just add in real quick. For any aspiring editors out there, what's one piece of advice you'd want to give them?
Emily, you start.
yeah. Okay. So I would say for someone who maybe is an assistant editor that wants to move up, it's really tough. And I get it because I've, been there. The thing is, I think as an assistant editor, the best thing you can do is go into work every day with a great attitude, but also find things to do where you can put your creativity to use. So sound design is something that editors will almost always need help with. That's something I've always put way up in my priority of like, I'm going to do the best sound design I can do. And I always approach it in a way where I'm story based in my sound design. So I'm like, I'm adding this sound because of this reason, or I'm, making the outside during the long time. My whole thing was like, okay, well, the outside's going to be overgrown. We're going to hear lots of bugs. We're going to hear lots of, things in the wilderness, whatever. Putting that in my mind for story. And then when they go into this gas station, it's really dead. And, you're not going to be hearing much because the world's different. So just like that might sound basic, but at the same time, it's like doing things because of story, sound because of story. And I think that that's key because that translates into being an editor and working on story. And I think that that really helped me with moving up and being promoted, and also, just showing my skills when I could. So that's one thing I always tell assistant editors is sound design is a huge thing.
Yeah, and I would say for me, for young editors, I would say the thing I didn't do, which I wish I had done, was practice as much as possible. It was a while ago, so it was harder to practice. Nowadays, it's a little easier. I would say that the only thing that made me any good, if I can even say that as an editor, is the amount of time I've done it. And so the more practice you do with it, even if you don't think you're any good at it, the better you're going to get, because you're going to experience situations and you're going to go, oh, I've been through this. I know what this feels like. So now when a scene comes my way, I go, I know exactly what this scene is. I know there's a way to do it. So that's my backup. And then I go, how can I do this in a new way? How can I make this fresh? How can I do this slightly differently? I can do the version that I already know because I've practiced it so many times. And so that would be my big advice, is just practice as much as you can, and asks an editor on Twitter. I won't call it X. It's Twitter, or wherever, and say, hey, I'd love to show you something at some point. Do you mind? And half the time, actually more than half the time, they're going to say sure. It's not a situation where the world is closed off anymore. It's very open, and I find editors to be the most generous people, because ultimately, what we do is, oh gosh, here we go, is in the shadows. And so it's nice to come into the light sometimes, and that would be my advice.
Yeah, and I just want to add, I think trying to get with an editor who wants to teach and wants you to move up is huge, because my life changed in a huge way once I started working for Tim. So I just think that it's important to find people that want you to succeed.
That's true what you said about like reaching out online. I feel like there's so many people you can connect with now and like befriend and like just learn from, especially for creatives. I feel like creatives, especially, I do the same thing. I still say Twitter. But on Twitter, I've connected with so many like great creatives, and it's just like even like right now, look, this happened because of Twitter, like
Exactly. See, self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if this is going to make it real quick. I think it's about to end, but this came in the mail today, and I wanted to show you real quick. I don't know if you can see it. Wait, oh no!
Oh my God!
The blur is ruining it, but
yeah, but I know exactly what it is.
You know what it
is.
Yes,
it came in today. I was like,
so cool.
I gotta show them.
That's awesome. I love it.
Amazing.
I needed it for my collection. But thank
Yeah.
you so much for talking with
Thank
me.
you, Michelle.
Thank
Of
you.
course.
I
Been
really
wonderful.
appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.